Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Knowing Who podcast. This is episode 18, 18, and we are going to be talking about, as you probably already know, Cold War, Series 7B.
Yeah.
2013,
12 years ago,
Don't say that.
I know, scary that. It will be 12 years come April. Yeah.
That's horrible.
That's really frightening, isn't it? Yeah.
It's like 5 years since Nikola Tesla Night of Terror as well.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter.
That's all over Twitter.
Wow. That's mental.
Is that 5 years today?
Nikola Tesla is now going to preschool, and Cold War is sort of
just starting secondary school.
Beginning to start secondary school. That's crazy.
Brilliant. What a way to start this episode.
There you go.
Just depress everyone.
I do think it's funny when you compare episodes like release dates to like ages. It's always quite weird because Rose is now. I mean, what Rose?
Rose is 20 this year.
Rose is going to be 20. Wow.
Rose is the age that Rose is.
Yeah.
In Rose.
Rose has been out.
Rose is 18
drinking in uni and
Rose.
all that sort of stuff. It's wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. That's growing up. That's growing up, folks. Isn't that? It's insane. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about instead.
Yes, very briefly. There's not much news. Last week we missed Tom Baker got an MBE.
He did.
It's also his birthday today, as of recording.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. And it's so weird seeing on Twitter when they said it was his birthday.
They said MBE on it.
Tom Baker MBE. Like we're gonna have to be writing that now. You know, just like Sir John Hurt and. You know, I mean, they could have made him a Sir. That would have been very cool.
Next year.
Sir Tom Baker.
Next year.
Anyway.
Can you be made I'm not going to ask that question. That's too depressing.
I know exactly what you were going to say.
I'll leave you to ponder it.
Do not make me think about that. Not now.
And one other thing, I've teased Miles with this. It's not really news at all. Something leaked the other day, a logo for the War Between the Land and the Sea.
Oh.
It's since been debunked.
Right, so it wasn't real.
Someone put on r/Disney Plus on Reddit like a slate for all the new programs on Disney Plus this year, and at the very end was The War Between the Land and the Sea. But then people have said, people who get actual promo emails from Disney Plus haven't got the email and blah blah, so it's probably not real, so and it doesn't match the one that was at the rap party. But it was going around Twitter I think all day yesterday and this morning, and ever since it's now been debunked.
That reminds me of when someone faked a new logo. Must have been around the Russell T Davies era, or maybe it was the Jodie era, and it was so convincing that people thought it was genuine, and then the guy a week later went like, I managed to trick the Doctor Who fandom into thinking that this was the new logo. Here's how I did it. So that's pretty cool. I did hear one little thing about War Between the Land and the Sea.
Go on. I saw something today as
well. Al Jawar.
I saw that as well.
Said on a podcast that apparently it's not within the contract for...
It's not in the Doctor Who rights.
Yeah, for either merchandising or just the figures.
But then neither was Sarah Jane or Torchwood.
Very true.
So I'm not surprised by that.
There we go.
But he also said yet, apparently. So maybe he's thinking about it. But also, this is an adult TV series on BBC Three vibe, Torchwood vibe.
I guess people were just hoping for a new Sea Devil figure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I suppose.
But
I forgot about
I'm
that.
sure...
I forgot they were even in it.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I'm sure that that will be featured in the show at some point.
Yeah,
so they'll have a way around it. I mean, we've got the Peter Cushing Daleks, for God's sake. There's always a way around these things. But yes, from one green alien to another, we're talking about Cold War today. We haven't talked exclusively about a Smith story before.
No.
So I said, well, let's go for one. We sort of were umming and ahhing, but
we weren't sure what to go for.
Yeah.
And then who was it? Did I just say it at random, or did you say it at random?
You suggested Amy's Choice initially, and I think I was all for it. And then suddenly I just went, you know what? Let's do Cold War, because I think it's one that's from a season which isn't talked about as much. It's that weird kind of... Series 7 is so bizarre because it's got that first half with Amy and Rory, and then the second half with Jenna Louise Coleman. It's like a false... It's such a weird combination.
Series 7A is like a goodbye to Amy and Rory, and every story doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And then Series 7B is a hello to Clara, but also nothing really matters until the 50th.
Yeah.
So it's a weird series.
It's a very odd... So I thought, let's go and talk about this, and I wanted to talk about Cold War because I think it's just bloody great. I watched the Smith stuff again recently, kind of from the start, and there was loads of lovely sort of gems in there that I totally forgot about, and this was definitely one of them. There's some beautiful stuff in there which we'll go into. But yes, Cold War broadcast the 13th of April 2013.
He's written down his notes.
Written by Mark Gatiss, directed by Douglas McKinnon. McKinnon? I'd never know how to say his name.
I would say McKinnon.
And starring Matt Smith and, as I've said, in this instance, Jenna Louise Coleman, when she still had the double-barreled surname, which is so weird seeing the old Smith title sequence.
I know.
You know.
I didn't forget about it, but it is actually really pretty, isn't it?
It is.
That intro. It's kind of sad it only got half a series.
Yeah, it is a shame because I love especially the theme tune. Like, I can't believe that was only the theme for not even a whole series. It was, because it's so alien and weird. And
it's got loads of little just bits. If you watch it, it just every sort of frame is different. It's really good.
Including
really
the wolf drinking a cup of tea. Do you remember that?
No, what?
I'll show you that after. Once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it.
Okay,
it's in there,
and it's the return of the face in the opening credits.
Yes,
the first time in the new series.
Subtly,
I like that.
Yeah, I like that as well because it sort of blends in with the nebula, and then come Capaldi, we just get the eyes, and we've not had anything since, I suppose.
And the eyebrows.
The eyes and the eyebrows. So yeah. What do you think of this one? I've sort of already said.
Jumping straight into it, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
But it's sort of one of those stories that you don't think about a lot, like the rest of Series 7, like we said. But it's actually really good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And this one is more so than the rest of them. I think flies under the radar because looking at TARDIS Wiki just for the odd fact, I saw that for some reason someone had worked out that this is the only story in Series 7B that doesn't bring up the Impossible Girl subplot. I say subplot, the kind of arc for Clara. So this is very much like standalone. You like watching this. I totally forgot about the Impossible Girl stuff that obviously happens in the name of the Doctor because it's not mentioned once. Clara is just your companion for the Doctor.
Yeah.
And there you go, really. And they're both so good in it, but we'll go into that. The first thing I wanted to mention, and you said about bringing up the cast list before we started this.
It's star-studded.
It's absolutely star-studded. You've got David Warner for a start, royalty. You've got Tobias Menzies as one of the captains on the
Lieutenant
ship.
Stepashin.
Stepashin, yes, that's it, yeah.
Pronounced in a very British accent.
James Norton
yes.
as like a sort of a minor character on the submarine.
Who nowadays is the star of many an ITV drama.
Yeah, he was that Mafia and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, he's now one of those big stars. Liam Cunningham, who was in Game of Thrones. I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but
I don't know that one. But
he was even apparently considered to be the 8th Doctor. So there you go.
There you go.
And then, of course, the kind of one, a bit like Andrew Garfield, that you think, oh my God, what the hell? Josh O'Connor, from The Crown and now
it was a bit sort of
challenges.
Half the cast goes on to go into The Crown. Like you've got two versions of Prince Philip, who meet, and also Prince Charles. It's and he's only in it for like a minute at the start.
He gets killed off before the title sequence. Like that's how small a role it is. It's nuts.
It's
really
great. It's star-studded. It was genuinely amazing watching it, thinking, "Oh my God! Oh, it's him! Oh, it's him!"
You forget because even that, like, just in the pre-titles alone, all of them are in it, and you're like, "Oh my God!" Like
it's huge.
Yeah, and this was 12 years ago. This was before some people's careers have lifted off. Obviously, David Warner, was already this huge name, and for Doctor Who to get him was.
Of course, David Warner is a Doctor in Big Finish as well.
He's in
I don't know when
Doctor.
He started doing all that, but I
think he started that around 10 years before this in like 2003.
Yeah.
So
do you think on set they had chats, Matt and David Warner, about being the Doctor?
But yeah, it's fantastic the sort of caliber of
it is, and it's for such a bottle episode as well. All the money must have gone to I guess some of them weren't stars yet, but it's probably all went to David Warner.
I mean, it's interesting because apparently David Warner asked Mark Gatiss and said, why, can't I be in a Doctor Who, just one? And Mark Gatiss was the one who got him involved. So obviously David Warner, just wanted to do it. So I mean, obviously I'm assuming he got a very big paycheck regardless.
He must have done, yeah.
What a fantastic, from the off, you've already got great players in place to sort of celebrate the return of an iconic villain. which again I suppose we probably take for granted now. Like
they've been back a couple times.
Yeah, the Ice Warriors are just oh yeah. I mean, having said that,
it's only one more story. Actually.
Yeah,
also written by Mark.
Gatiss. Because apparently Moffat didn't want them back because he just thought they were quite a one-note villain. But I think Mark Gatiss was just like,
he did a really good job in this.
Yeah.
In this story. And did you watch Doctor Who Extra on this episode?
I totally forgot because I thought, there's no confidential.
It 10 minutes ago.
Nice. Was there any tidbits in that?
Not really. Gatiss does say, I wanted to bring back the Ice Warriors. And I also wanted to make sure that they were absolutely almost identical to how they were physically and visually.
They basically are. They're just a buffed up version of the original.
And I think he's got a couple extra fingers compared to the original.
Yes, the original has just a claw, whereas this one has like
he's got a hand.
Yeah, a bit like the Zygons. They do
That's
that
what I was
for the
Zygons
say, as well. But I think the Ice Warriors and the Zygons were the most faithful kind of recreation of but done in this modern way. Yeah,
same year, 2013.
Yeah, both in the same year. Yeah. Wow, look at that. It's fantastic to see the Ice Warriors back and looking so good.
And he is properly menacing.
Really good.
Even when he's in his suit.
Yeah.
He is really good. I really like it. Yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because obviously in this episode, and I think what convinced Stephen Moffat to sort of let this episode happen, you get the Ice Warrior out of the suit for pretty much, the majority of the runtime.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes sense. You're in a submarine, you're in a confined space, this big hulking thing.
You can't really have that.
Yeah, so it makes sense regardless of that fact, but it works so well as both, I think, because you've got those beautiful shots of it sort of stomping down the corridor, the bullets just ricocheting off the shell, and then you get, the it's kind of like Alien. On a submarine, really.
It is a bit like Alien. Yeah. No, it's exactly that's brilliant because he hides in the shadows as well. Definitely not to hide the CGI. Just like an Alien.
It's like
that's not CG. That was
it's like Alien, but they pushed it a little bit further in terms of how much they were showing the creature.
Slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some thoughts about that.
But, and you said the beautiful shots of the thing. It's a bloody beautiful looking episode.
Yeah,
it is such a nice. I want to shout out to the director of photography, Susie Lavelle.
God, I'm glad that you've
amazing.
Mentioned
she does
DOP,
such a good job. And it's not, and I'm sure she worked well with Douglas McKinnon, and they both sort of thought about lighting and shots and stuff. But some of the physically, there's some really creative shots. I think there's reflections, in puddles and stuff, and then there's
underwater
shots, of the Sonic in slow motion.
Yeah,
the bit at the start when Prince Charles gets killed, when Piotr gets killed, and it's all in slow-mo. That is so beautiful.
It is gorgeous, isn't it? Yeah.
And the lighting, it's all lighting that's made in the set. It's not external lighting from the crew. It's all in set. Yeah. And it's so beautiful and so colourful. And I guess when you have a set like this, which is so confined and like a submarine, you just have to go all out on that element, because otherwise it will just look like you're shooting in a and it's quite obvious when you look at it that there's only 2 sets or 3 sets, but you don't see that with the way they shoot it. It's so nice.
It probably was, I imagine, the cheapest episode of the series.
It's definitely a bottle episode, except for David Warner. There we
go. Oh, we can only set this episode on a submarine now.
It used model shots as well.
I was just going to bring up those as well.
They bring that up in Extra.
Yeah.
It's apparently the first time the new series has used model shots. Or at least in a while. That's what he says in Doctor Who Extra.
Really?
It's the first time in years that they've used model shots.
Is this Mike Tucker who said this?
No, Mark Gatiss said that.
Oh, Mark Gatiss. Well, I think Mark Gatiss is barking at the wrong tree, because I think the like in Aliens of London, the Big Ben shot is a model shot.
Okay, that's true. Maybe he means since the start of New Who then.
Maybe.
Possibly. I don't know. He said it's the first time in years.
Either way, it's great to... That's the only way that you could convincingly pull that off.
And I did clock that watching it, but it wasn't a model shot. It was, oh my God, a model shot. It was that's so cool.
I love models anyway.
I love models.
There's something about it being tangible that kind of... It ages better than CGI in a lot of ways, because
this episode's a great example.
But that stuff is... CGI is constantly evolving and changing, whereas model shots, you've nailed the model shot, really. shoot it in with a lot of frames, slow it down, and boom, you've got a beautiful piece of work. And it just looks great. It really sells it. You know, there's nothing about it. As a kid, definitely didn't even cross my mind that it was a model because it was.
No,
I
wouldn't have noticed as a kid.
I wouldn't have even. I mean, I didn't even think like, oh, that's computer generated. I just didn't question it. Yeah. That's a submarine, you know. Yeah. It's fantastic, and it's this in terms of that setting. I think it's, you know, not only the Cold War setting but the submarine setting. It's and thematically that works really well. You know, the whole Cold War stuff, and obviously Cold War Ice Warriors pun, but
very funny.
You know, the situation, you know.
What do you think came first, the Cold War or the Ice Warrior in the writing of this story?
Oh, definitely the Ice Warrior. I'm sure it was the Ice Warrior. And then
you went, oh,
like, there's no way I can't set this in the Cold War
now.
But the submarine setting, it's kind of harking back to the classic series, you know, your Troughton Base Under Siege.
It's
stories.
very Base Under Siege.
It's kind of the best example of the new series just doing one of those stories. And for that reason, I think you could easily pop, you know, Tom Baker or Troughton definitely into this story, and you know, other than the Doctor's characteristics and all that sort of stuff, you've pretty much got your story there.
Yeah. And the Hads as well. Like that's exactly the second Doctor thing, isn't
Troughton
it?
Thing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Mark Gatiss had been binging the Troughton era.
It feels like it. Yeah,
story.
Literally, it's very Troughton.
Yeah, and it works. It works so well, as you've said. The direction is kind of what sells that, because it is so claustrophobic. Like, you get the sense that.
Yeah. And there's such a heavy atmosphere as well.
Yeah.
It's just done so well.
Like, when the titles sort of finish and we get, you know, the submarines sinking and all this sort of stuff, and the Doctor and Clara literally get thrown into it, and it feels like you know, you're losing your breath because of all this stuff that's going on. And I mean, it's the pace of it. This episode's like 41 minutes long. It's not even like the full 45.
Yeah, it's a quick one.
So it's really zips along. I mean, there's the quiet moments, obviously, you know, when Clara goes to confront Skaldak a bit, you know, like Rose and the Dalek in Dalek. But when you look at it on the face of it, it is so zippy. And, you know, that matches the era. It matches the 11th Doctor.
It does.
It's fantastic.
And the intro, the little intro of them arriving, Viva Las Vegas!
Yeah. I think it's great.
It's really funny.
And I think, I mean, now is probably a good time to say, I mean, as weird as it is seeing Eleven and Clara together, you know, because it's like seeing the third Doctor and Sarah Jane. You know, it's slightly wrong, but obviously, you know, it absolutely works. There's really good chemistry there. Clara is kind of...
The Doctor's not flirting yet, which
Doctor's
is nice.
not flirting yet, but Clara is... Clara feels younger. She's
still figuring it all out, because there's that bit where she goes, "Am I speaking Russian?"
Yeah,
which, like, it's, you know, I'm used to Clara knowing everything and being the boss, so the fact that she doesn't know that yet is quite refreshing.
She's
almost
more innocent and kind of a bit more kind of just enjoying the ride. Yeah, which is why it's really great when you get that scene of they see horrifically all these bodies that have been like dissected, and Clara's like, okay, this is, you know, suddenly it's a bit more real. It's not just, you know, daft professors in submarines and a green monster. It's like, no, the people are actually dying here. Yeah. This is quite grim. And Jenna is fantastic. It's so bizarre having seen her progression with the 12th Doctor, and obviously Jenna Coleman's progression as an actor, like having watched her in The Jetty last year, and she's, you know, amazing in that. And going back to sort of where she started with Doctor Who, it's lovely having these sort of time capsules of these actors, and kind of where they started out.
Was she still basically an unknown at this point?
Kind of.
I think she'd
done Waterloo Road. Was
it Waterloo Road? I think she did
one of the soaps as well.
Hollyoaks, I think it was. I think she was on that.
Or maybe Emmerdale or something like that.
Possibly, yeah.
But this was kind of, I think, her entrance onto the world stage, because you know, after this she's gone on to amazing things, and it's great to see sort of where she started here and how her character develops from the sort of she's cheeky in this, like even when there's been that big sort of meeting between all the people on the submarine, you know, of like we're probably going to die, but let's die taking this thing down. And Clara still kind of, makes little jokes here and there. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was quite a nice little thing to sort of bring alleviate the tension a bit, and then the Doctor brings it back down again.
Yes.
So yeah, I absolutely love Jenna in this, and Matt Smith. I mean,
he's peak Matt Smith.
Peak Matt Smith.
I think.
I feel like we take it for granted just how good he is as the Doctor. Like, it's just one of those things that you accept. Oh yeah, Matt Smith as the Doctor. And when you actually watch him and think about it, he is just it's cliche, but he was born to play that role. Like, he is so
flappy
good.
hands and all.
The
flappy hands really work in this one because it sprays water everywhere.
You can see
every time
it.
he moves, there's a drop of water that goes flying.
Yeah.
And they're all absolutely soaked, which is
they are. I love
brilliant.
That. I love how drenched they are for the whole thing. God, they must have been so cold.
They said in Doctor Extra that they wanted them to be wet for 3 weeks. Like, that's how wet they wanted them to feel.
Yeah.
And apparently between every take they were doused in another bucket of water.
Bet. Yeah.
Imagine the amount of water, because in that first scene there's water up to like their shins. Like, that they'd have to contain that on the set somehow. Like, that's
what's so, it's a dangerous thing working with that much water.
Yeah.
But they do it, and it's sort of, kudos to the design departments.
It's something, when I think back on the Moffat era, it's sort of more fantastical fairy tale, not sort of very realistic,
grim and gritty,
but then when you look at this episode, it is very grim and down to earth, factual almost. And it's tense. It's really tense.
Yeah.
Especially sort of towards just before they realise that Skaldak's gone walkabout. You can feel that, even though it's played a bit for laughs with Clara, the Doctor is terrified. He has no idea what to do. He has no clue how to resolve this. And also, when you think about it, there was really no resolution until the Ice Warriors at the end of the day pulled them out of the ocean.
Yeah.
Like, they were just going to die there.
Yeah.
That was it.
It gets very
dark.
bleak.
And about itchy trigger fingers and the end of the world. Like, the Ice Warrior just going, well, my people aren't coming to save me. I'm just going to kill this entire planet.
Yeah.
The stakes are huge. And that's just what the Cold War was, I suppose.
Well, that's, And,
that's the whole point.
It was down to people in rooms making decisions for the rest of the world, basically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of,
Have you ever read those stories of, like, Soviet submarines getting false signals or like not believing the right thing, and the world almost ended in the 80s just because one guy misunderstood a command.
It was a horrendous time, and I mean, can't imagine what it was like to live through. Maybe we just lived through it in blissful ignorance, but
possibly.
But it's kind of captured in that opening, in the kind of attitudes, like you say. There's that great scene between the Ice Warrior and Stevisham, when obviously the guy's just trying to save his own skin.
And he's learning about mutually assured destruction.
Yeah. I mean, that would have been a cracking episode title as well. Mutually assured destruction. Mad. I think that setting is fantastic, and it's really interesting when Doctor Who does not saying the 80s was yesterday, but a kind of a recent period piece.
Because they were making Doctor Who in the 80s.
Yeah.
So sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
I did think, when you were saying earlier about Tom Baker or Patrick Troughton doing this story, I mean, they couldn't, because this was post Tom Baker and Patrick Troughton.
Exactly,
the Cold War was not a thing when they were the Doctor. Well,
it would have been a World War II submarine or something like that instead.
And they weren't really proper submarines, I guess.
Well, not to the level of what we had in the Cold War.
Shall we go through the story a bit?
Yeah.
If you've got notes in order of the story.
I've just sort of got a load of random
because we've just
sort
of been jumping back and forth and talking about atmosphere and things. I feel like we should.
You pick out those sort of moments that stood out to you.
You're asking the guy who doesn't have any notes in front of him, Miles.
Yeah, go for it then.
Hang on, let me get the TARDIS out.
We've already mentioned the sort of the pre-credits and the sort of
we have
the rushed
the intro
in the submarine.
Fandom, go away.
I really like Matt Smith again, just to bring up how good he is, how good he is at exposition, because he gets a lot in this story.
Huge.
But the way that it's kind of blended with the action is very nice. Like, he gives some Cold War exposition whilst being sort of searched. He has a Barbie doll for some reason.
Yes, that's quite funny. And it's never explained. It never doesn't really get any reference either.
No, but it's good.
He gets it back and he goes, "Oh, good."
And he has a similar sort of thing in terms of what the Ice Warriors are. Another thing about fixed moments in time. He's very good at just melding those with the action and keeping things flowing, not just sort of saying, "All right, let's stop a moment."
It never drags down. It never. The speed doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm. I particularly love when he's talking about the Ice Warriors, and he sort of gets carried away with him and himself as he's sort of.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, no,
he's like,
they're really cool."
Oh, look, you've made me talk about them, and I didn't want to do that.
No, that's a very good line.
What about the moment when we meet Skaldak for the first time?
Down in the depths of the submarine.
Yeah, so again, that's another moment which really gets across the sort of the compactness of the setting when. Clara wakes up and the Doctor's being chucked about by the captain, just slammed from wall to wall.
That is really good.
And you feel how tight that space is.
It is, and it's such a small. I mean, it's the idea of the submarine, isn't it? It's tense, it's small, it's high stakes, high pressure.
Yeah.
So they go down to meet Skaldak before they know that it's Skaldak specifically. They just know it's an ice warrior. And the Doctor's trying to tell them, so. You must be absolutely respectful. You can't trigger him in any way. You can't set him off. You must not make sure you don't want to die. Basically, you don't want to be killed by this ice warrior, especially on a submarine full of nukes. He's been trapped in the ice for 5,000 years. Skaldak does not like the fact that he's been trapped for 5,000 years.
No, he's woken up a bit groggy.
He's a bit cross.
He's not that happy.
The Doctor asks the warrior for its name. To quote TARDIS Wiki, to which it replies, Grand Marshal Skaldak. And the
Grand Marshal, which I also love as a reference to...
Is that a reference?
Well, the Ice Warriors, when you got the sort of head Ice Warriors, they weren't just called like Ice Warrior Leader, they were called Grand Marshal. Not Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal.
Yeah.
And the Doctor's face drops. It's that moment of just realising that tense. It's tense. I keep saying tense, but it's that moment where he just suddenly realises, that's who we're dealing with here. I assume Skaldak's not a name we heard in the classic series at any point.
No, but a lot of slars and various bits and pieces for sure. Yeah.
And it's at that moment when the Doctor, he just sort of turns around and says, "This guy's a real big baddie." And he just sort of ignores him and he exposits, I suppose. Like you said, discusses everything bad about Skaldak.
Yeah, and it's also quite a nice reference to the fact that the Doctor doesn't immediately go, "Oh God, it's an Ice Warrior, bad, run away," because as the classic series had gone on, the Ice Warriors were developed so they weren't just, "Oh, here's today's baddie." By the time you get to the Peladon stories, have you heard of the?
I know of Peladon.
Yeah, so basically it was an allegory for the EU, and there's a galactic federation, and the Ice Warriors are part of this federation, but they're goodies. And obviously there's this in the Curse of Peladon, there's a bit of suspicion on who's trying to disrupt this, and obviously the Ice Warriors sort of get the heat put on them, not literally because they'd probably kill them, but
their suit would go haywire.
Yes, they would, exactly. John Pope just going around with a cattle prod trying to go, come here. But
Akira!
Yeah. But no, they're good guys in that, basically.
Okay.
So it's kind of established that, not all Ice Warriors are just evil. So it's nice that the Doctor's like there trying to treat them with
But this would be
respect
Skaldak from before they were a bit of a good guy. As in, he's from 5,000 years ago compared to
in terms of timeline, I have no idea
knows?
how that works.
Who knows? And of course, as you said, cattle prod. He gets cattle prodded. Why do they have a cattle prod? Polar bears.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. Is it David Warner who mentioned that?
It is. Yeah.
I also just want to say specifically about David Warner.
Go for it.
Obviously, he's absolutely amazing.
He is.
But it's gorgeous casting. He's a wonderful character, so endearing and lovable, and
he's a bit quirky.
He's quirky. And also, he brings his just natural warmth to the part. He's played a few villains, quite a lot of villains in the past, but
he's not sort of what you expect someone like David Warner to be playing.
No,
almost, because I remember when this episode went out, they announced David Warner's in this one, and I did a bit of googling when my 12-year-old self.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, he's big, he's prestigious, he's a big important guy.
Yeah.
And then he ends up playing the sort of quirky scientist who likes the West's music and the.
I love Ultravox. I bloody love them.
Yeah.
He's really. You feel for. I remember even as a kid when we were watching this episode, the moment when like the. Skaldak grabs him.
Oh no!
And he's basically gonna die. I really felt that kind of don't kill him. Don't kill this guy. Like it wasn't like I'm not really bothered. It was genuinely like you do really feel you get attached to this character. So I think he was fantastic casting. Obviously, it'd been great if David Warner, had another part in the show and an even bigger part. He did so much for Big Finish. He was a real, not just as the Unbound Doctor, but as various characters for them. So if you do want to see him in Doctor Who or hear him in Doctor Who, then you can check those out. But yeah, it's such a shame that we won't get him in Doctor Who again. But he was fantastic in that small part that he had. Well, not small in the episode, but small in the grand scheme of things. And really well cast because it just suited the warmth of the man himself. Really,
they probably couldn't afford him for a whole series long part anyway.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if he might have been very keen to be part of Doctor Who. You never know.
Yeah, well, if he asked for a part, then I guess he must have been.
Absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, he gets cattle prodded.
And, not David Warner.
Not David Warner. Skaldak.
That would have been a very horrible story.
And sort of very undoctor-like, the Doctor tells them to lock him up and tie him up.
Well, it's a bit like Dalek,
I suppose, yeah. He knows the threat and he knows what he has to do. And they go on to reference the fact that the Doctor is a soldier and he has fought in war. And he can't be the one to reason with Skaldak because
he'd smell it on him.
Yeah,
I love Clara's line of, I don't smell of anything.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so cute.
And then she goes in with the little torch and the headphones, which is sort of, you don't think of it properly, but when you look at the images from this episode and when you're watching, that's sort of an iconic almost shot of her with the massive headphones on, sort of like the ones we're wearing right now.
Yeah, I love how that's not changed. Yeah, there's literally headphones that are just still like that.
Similar vintage. And the torch that she's got in her hand, which is, and it's such a sort of beautiful shot.
I think you used this to promote the episode.
I think it was. I put it on. I did put it on the socials. But it, like I was saying about lighting from within the shot, there's a backing light from behind. It's not off camera. It's down the corridor, and then the light from her torch lighting the foreground, and then she's being lit from the back, and it's dark on the edges. It's just such a lovely composition of a shot, and I can't get that image out of my head. Not because Jenna Coleman's in it, but I just can't get that image out of my head.
It's really
it's a really pretty shot.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of, and I keep saying it, but there's a lot of just really really nice looking shots in this, especially later on when the room's all red and stuff like that.
The one I always think of when I think of this episode, and it might even be the thumbnail for it on iPlayer. Is obviously everyone's seen Skaldak, but the Doctor's sort of waiting for the penny to drop. He's in the foreground in focus, and there's the Ice Warrior in the background above his shoulder, and it's the blue lighting. There we go. It's that. That's why. That's
it is
why
the iPlayer thumbnail.
So it's just really good stuff.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's a brilliant little sequence where he's talking about. Was he talking about Ice Warriors? Or he was talking about ice. Whatever it is, and then they're all looking over his shoulder. That is, I completely forgot about that whole scene. It's
talking about gas. It could be gas. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Anyway, carrying on. This is a smooth little segue here.
Well, there are still little bits that I want to talk about.
Go for it. I just kind of want to go in order.
Obviously, Clara goes in and. Again, like I've sort of already compared, a bit like Rose and the Dalek kind of has this exchange, and turns out Ice Warrior's not in the suit; he's actually in the ceiling.
Yeah, that's a nice little reveal, isn't it?
Yeah,
you can sort of when Clara's walking up to the suit, you can kind of go, "Oh, what's going on? Why is she? What's gone wrong?"
But again, the lighting's very good; that it doesn't reveal it straight away.
It is.
It's clever, and then we get. Here's the gimmick of this episode. We're gonna have the Ice Warrior out of its armor,
slithering around in the ceiling.
So I've already mentioned this. I think that it's a fantastic idea. Bring back an old monster and expand on the lore of the characters. A lot of people weren't as much a fan of this.
I'm not surprised,
but
knowing Doctor Who fans.
This would have been, the first Ice Warrior. I was aware of the Ice Warriors, obviously, but I don't think I would have seen any of the previous stories.
Me too.
So, this would have been the first time I'd seen the Ice Warriors in action. So, as a 13-year-old, this was just, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
This
it is a bit sort of
the Ice Warriors.
When you look at it, I guess it just means that the armor is really thick, because when you look at it, it doesn't look like there'll be a tiny slim.
Well, I don't think we ever
fella.
saw. I think they made an animatronic kind of version of the creature, and they only used bits of it. But the only reason we know what it fully looks like is because did they make a figure of it for like?
There was an action figure, 3.75-inch scale thing. I don't know if there was one without a suit. I'll do a quick Google.
I think it was
here.
in one of those time zone cardboard play sets.
Yeah, Ice Warrior, Doctor Who action figure.
The little 3.75 one. So I think that's how we know.
Which I refuse to ever buy.
Yeah, the only part of it that we do see. Is obviously the apart from the CGI rendition of the head that we occasionally catch glimpses of.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, there was a figure.
That's the one. Yeah.
He's a skinny little fella.
Yeah, and the face doesn't really look like the one that we see.
It's
in the
nothing
suit
at all like the one from the episode.
The arm. I don't even think the arms look similar to the ones in the episode.
It's got the 3 sort of fingers.
Yeah, but those are the kind of the practical element that we see of it.
Also, those hands would not fit in that suit. Looking at them side by side.
Yeah.
Don't think about it.
Well, even the ones in the
episode,
story,
don't think about it.
But yeah, the arms. Now, I think even when I was a kid, I had a little bit of an issue.
Okay.
Because it's they're quite spindly.
They're very spindly. It's not something I thought about until I saw that image.
Yeah.
Of them next to each other. Yeah, they don't fit in the suit at all.
And it's I can see what they're trying to do.
They're doing Alien, aren't they?
They are doing Alien, so they're only revealing bits of this creature. But obviously, it's very hard to practically do a kind of obviously very not human shape.
Yeah.
With those hands, I think that the scenes where people get sort of attacked from the ceiling, there we go. Ben's just showed me a picture of Jenna being menaced by them.
Yeah. I think that looks quite good.
I think they're very threatening scenes, and in sort of stills, it looks very freaky. It's just there's the occasional bit when you're like, they do look a bit plasticky,
like a rubber chicken.
Yeah, that kind of you could sort of, if you touch them, they'd kind of make a very squeaky noise.
Well, all the budget's gone to the CGI.
Yeah.
And David Warner.
Yeah. I mean, we've got to bear in mind at the end of the day, this is now 12 years old.
Exactly. I had that thought at the end, thinking, this is very obviously a CGI lizard man. But in 2013, as a 12-year-old, because I would have been the target audience really back then, did I notice?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Exactly. and it's very much 2013 because I've saw loads of lens flares which made me think, let's go, that's J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, they're doing
right
the Star Trek thing.
But having said all that, even though there's things about the execution which are worth flagging, I think that the concept of an Ice Warrior out of the suit, it's more vulnerable, therefore more of a threat. It's like any threatened animal. A scared animal is going to be much more dangerous.
Yeah.
Than an animal that's sort of cushed in its shell suit. That's what Clara said.
She calls it a shell suit. Yeah.
She calls it a shell suit, and the doctor's
that's
like,
very
all right,
funny.
Calm down. But yes, I think that idea is great. It's a bit like, Dalek in again. That here's this one creature that's basically trying to contact its race, thinks they're not there, and then suddenly they have nothing to lose, and that's what makes something deadly dangerous. Yes. So I think deadly dangerous, not just dangerous. I think that it's a really, really clever way of using the Ice Warriors, adding something new, and
it is. I mean, if you were to do this story without that element, it wouldn't really be as threatening
because as I said earlier on, there's some great shots of that suit walking down the corridors, but it's a lumbering thing, and you can't do Alien with this big stomping thing going down the corridor. It's I think it was the best way of doing a story like this with an Ice Warrior, and add something new, and it's still creepy. And I think there's somehow even more tension with it being out the suit because it's so quick, and
I like it. I do actually really like it being out the suit. I think it is properly scary.
Yeah,
it's actual sort of scary Doctor Who.
Yeah, it is because it is Alien for kids basically. This story.
Yeah.
And as we've said, the design of the Ice Warrior itself is fantastic, and I love the fact that they add in terms of sound design, as well as the hissing. Well, it's more of a growl. In the old ones were sort of more. I'm not going to do an impression.
Proper
the old
hissing.
ones were just purely like hissing S's, whereas
like
in this
instance.
Snake. Sort of, yes. They had lisps, or lispy
like
Ice Warriors.
Snake.
Whereas Nick Briggs for this kind of does it a bit more. I think he was doing it for Big Finish at the time as well, so that's probably why he did it like this. But it's more kind of a growl, a sort of, that kind of thing.
That was good.
There you go.
You should do this.
And but they also add on top of that the clicking sound, which I think was from like a bugle whale. I don't know how to say it. Beluga. That's it.
Do they click?
I think so.
Okay.
I remember there was like a thing on the 2013 proms. There was like a little bit in the middle when they did the break on the radio version, and it was like they talked to some of the sound designers on Doctor Who, and they said, here's how we layered up the Ice Warriors thing. But I think that clicking just really works. I don't know what it is.
I had no problems with any of the sounds.
It's cool. I like it.
Cool.
It's satisfying.
Cool. Get it? Cold War.
Very satisfying noise.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's not a tritivore, but it's
not tritivore.
Yeah.
Trite. One of those.
Whatever they are.
Let's see. Have you got any other specific points?
I
quite like the hungry like the wolf bit.
I like the hungry like the wolf.
Go on, sing along. And I'm not going to sing.
And I like how that again, that sort of dynamic between her and the professor develops. I think that's very. It is
sweet. Kind of weird. So when you think of it, that in history, the Russians, the communists, the Reds, they were the baddies. Sort of. That's the way it's presented in Western history.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in this story, it doesn't matter.
No. Yeah.
It does not matter that they're the bad
field.
guys, because if you were to antagonize them, then the entire world is destroyed. You just have to make do.
Yeah,
which is very
with who you're working with.
Because you think about, I was thinking like David Warner, his character, he's quirky and he likes Western music and he likes Duran Duran and this, that, and the other. He's pally and he's laughing with Clara, but also like he's a scientist for the Soviet Union. Like what is he doing? Like he could literally be the worst person on earth.
That final shot when it ends on the joke of can we have a lift? And it's how jolly is this on the old Soviet submarine?
Very funny.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've never thought of it like that, but I suppose it's a good way of kind of
there's that moment where he says, Clara, you got to tell me, how does it end? What happens? And there's sort of this ominous tone of, well, this guy wants to know the future. He wants to know how the Cold War turns out.
Yeah.
Because obviously Clara is from post-Cold War, so he knows that there is a future, and he wants to know what it is. But it turns out he just means, does the band break up, which is very funny.
Yeah. It's a really lovely. It's and
then they laugh about it. So he's just a lovely old man.
Yeah, it's a really nice interaction between the two of them. When obviously Clara's, sort of feeling a little bit more tense than she might have been when singing the long song in Rings of Akaten.
Yes, which was the previous episode.
But I really like that moment and that scene, especially the start of it when because the Doctor's kind of just doing his own thing.
He runs off. He says, "Stay here."
Yeah,
he runs off.
And then she's like, "Okay," and then he's like, "No, stay here. Don't do anything." And she's like, "I'm not." And he's like, "There's this weird look that Matt does. He's kind of sort of, oh wow, this is."
They're actually listening to me for once.
Yeah,
they're not going to run off.
Yeah, so I like that, and I like how Matt sort of Jenna and David Warner are doing their sort of thing. and we just occasionally cut to Matt as he's like doing some physical comedy with like, you know, wheels on the wall or the sonic screwdriver or something like that.
Sets off an alarm with the sonic
it's
accident.
kind of a nice bit of sort of slapstick humour that he kind of gets to do himself. Beautiful scenes, really nice. All kind of leading up to the Ice Warrior grabbing the Professor and
Yes.
a little Churchill reference from the Doctor as well.
Yep.
Which is weird because whenever the Doctor mentions Churchill, I always forget. Oh, he's met Churchill.
He's best mates with Churchill.
Best mates. Not sure whether they do that now.
Let's walk around that bit.
Yeah. But then the Ice Warrior recalls its suit. The creature gets back in it, and
it's interesting how the suit on its own can break free of the chains.
Yeah, I did think that.
When he's in the suit, maybe he was just putting on a show because he was focusing on sending his distress signal.
Yeah, who knows?
But I did think that as he called it, like, what? Well, why didn't you do that earlier?
Yeah. Maybe it's because he knew he could, but he thought, oh, I'll play around with them for a bit and I'll learn a bit about humanity, and then. Obviously, when he's like, oh, well, no one's coming for me, I guess, boom, boom, you know. So they get back to the control room, and we get that really tense sort of standoff scene.
Yeah, mutually assured destruction.
Mutually assured destruction when the Doctor gets out the Sonic, and it goes red.
The red so I think this is the debut of the non-River Song red setting, I think.
I mean, it's a red setting that never comes back.
And
right?
he also doesn't say, this is the red setting. It does this, this, and this. Yeah. It just sort of goes red.
It goes red because it's linked
I think Capaldi's goes red, or is that just the toy?
I don't know.
I think it might go red.
I don't know. I don't think they've ever done a red one.
No. The toy goes red. I remember that, I think.
Really?
The Capaldi Sonic, I think.
Oh, you mean the blue one?
The blue Capaldi Sonic.
Yeah, that does go red.
But I don't think it does in the actual episode, in any of the Capaldi stories.
Yeah.
But it's because the red setting was a thing. River Song Sonic had a red setting. You don't have a red setting. What's the red setting?
Yeah.
And then this finally has this sort of comeback moment. Oh, look, I've got a red setting now. But I remember that in the build-up, or like in the next time trailer, everyone was going, "Oh, look, the red setting! Oh, the red setting!"
Yeah,
but then that's not really anything. It's just
cool that
it's red now.
It's a cool visual.
It's to demonstrate that he's serious now.
Yeah.
We're not as silly as we normally are. This is proper tense.
It is very nice, and I think Matt plays that moment really lovely when Skaldak's been teleported off, and there's still no guarantee that he's gonna, let the thing go or not. And
I will destroy.
I'll destroy as if I have to. Which is a really nice moment.
Yeah.
Because Matt gets to do kind of everything in this story. Like I've said, he gets to be funny. He gets to be deadly serious. He gets to just be weird. And the gravitas and all of it. It's a really good spectrum of his Doctor and his acting capabilities. It's a really fantastic. I mean, I just want to watch more Matt Smith stories now. Basically,
that can be arranged.
Yeah. I genuinely think that he's my favourite Doctor, or near enough.
There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a problem with that.
I just think over the years I've come to realise maybe
you've grown into your Matt Smith.
Yeah. So no, there's lots to love in this episode. I think it's.
I am very pleased that we sat down and watched this.
Me too.
This was very good.
I think it's just a good, solid Doctor Who story, which kind of has a bit of everything.
Yeah, and like I know I keep banging on about it, but it looks really nice.
Yeah,
which not a lot of Doctor Who's a lot of them do, but it's not every episode that looks this nice.
Well, it's because
it's nice to watch something this good.
Yeah, it's because it doesn't have to, other than the CG Ice Warrior head, it's not relying on stuff like that. It's just relying on sets,
in-camera sets,
acting, performances.
Everything.
It's all just relying on the basics, and that's why it really works. So. If you haven't watched Cold War in a while, stick it on.
Yeah.
Go on iPlayer, give it a binge, and maybe watch some more as well. Like I said, I watched a load of Smith stuff recently and had an absolute ball. There's some really, really great gems in there. So give them a watch. Maybe you'll want to watch Series 7B again.
Maybe we should. Talking about people watching Cold War, shall we go to our X comments? We need to delete this X account. It's driving me crazy. Sonny King, our lovely Sonny King, composer, our maestro himself, says, it's a bit of a hidden gem in Series 7.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent direction, and 11 and Clara's dynamic really excels.
Yeah.
That's true.
But
and it's,
and
like I said,
put it about myself.
There's no flirting. It's quite nice to not have that weird Moffat flirting between 11 and Clara.
It's just a classic Doctor and Companion dynamic, really.
Yeah.
They're just really good mates. And originally, this was when Mark originally was writing the script. Clara wasn't the companion; it was the Victorian governess character.
Yes, that would have been a very interesting.
I think she was called Beryl or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. That would have been really interesting, right? Imagine if Victorian Clara. I think a lot of people said, they'd love to see that. But
I would have loved a Victorian Clara.
I think that would have been really cool because we've never in the new series had that.
And I was going to say there's talk about the new one, Belinda, but she's not because we know she works in a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had another comment, and I think it must have been deleted because I can't find it anywhere. But I saw it earlier in the week, and I have no idea what it says, so I apologise if that was you.
Oh, well.
But we definitely did have another comment. But
comment it below on the video, or let us know.
Please, or tweet in, or X or Blue
Give
Sky
us a shout to tell us what you think of Cold War. Do let us know. It's a fab, underrated gem.
It's really good. It's just really good.
One of my favourites that we've talked about. It's Ice Warriors, it's Matt Smith, it's David Warner as a kooky professor. What more do you want?
And it's half the cast of The Crown.
Yeah. There you go. It's a multi-Prince Philip story.
It is. I sort of couldn't get my head around that. I thought that was really funny.
It is weird. It is very weird.
It is. And I can't imagine the memes that would have gone online when they announced new Prince Philip.
Yeah.
And they went, oh, look, it's Doctor and Prince Philip in the same episode. And Prince Philip. I was going to say something and I've forgotten. So it's fine.
Yeah.
I've nothing else.
Nothing else to add. Nice and simple. Well, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
I hope you've enjoyed.
Do we want to decide our next one on air, or should we do it off air?
Let's leave it as secret
because we don't know what it is.
We've spoiled it now.
I don't care.
But yeah, let's leave it a secret for now, and let it simmer. Put on a low heat and let it simmer, as Christopher Eccleston said.
Very good.
So thank you very much for listening.
Yes.
And
I had a lovely time. Did you have a lovely time?
I had a great time.
Good. I'm glad.
I think I might go and watch some more Matt Smith stories.
Hell yeah.
Might watch Hyde,
I was thinking that, because there's a next time trailer for Hyde at the end of this one. Because I don't really remember Hyde that well.
It's good.
Yeah.
Blowing great.
He has
really good.
Surprisingly long hair.
Well, it was the first one they filmed.
That makes sense. Because I remember seeing the next time trailer going, God, every shot he's got like a mullet.
Yeah, it's great. It's really cool. And Jenna's fantastic in that. And that's her first one. It's
I remember
insane.
the promo shots of them in the churchyard for that one. That was the first images we saw of them together.
Yeah.
Look at me. 12-year-old Ben was on the ball.
Happy memories. Happy memories. Yeah. And we've been very happy to chat to you all again as well. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. Let us know what you thought of Cold War. And I guess you'll hear us next time.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
Don't go on any submarines.
You've been listening to Knowing Who, another Doctor Who podcast, with me, Miles Taylor.
And me, Ben Davidson. Thank you to Sonny King for producing our theme tune.
And thank you to you for listening. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus YouTube on the Tailored Vision YouTube channel.
You can also follow us on all social media channels at Knowing Who Pod.
Catch you next time for more Knowing Who.